Good evening, everyone. Welcome. On behalf of Ivan and Manuela Wirth and Mark Peo, welcome to Hauser Wirth. My name is Zoe Sperling, Senior Director here in London. We are so thrilled to present Uman's exhibition, Darling Sweetie, Sweetie Darling, in equal partnership with Nicola Vassal Gallery in New York. This is part of our new collective impact model of collaborative representation. This special partnership is guided by a shared vision and is uniquely tailored to the needs of our artists. We are thrilled Nicola is here with us today. Thank you. This is our inaugural exhibition with Uman and her first solo presentation here in London. I think we all agree it is such a joy to be immersed within the power and energy of Uman's paintings. We are so lucky to have you here this evening with us in conversation with longtime friends and collaborators, Ilka Scobie and Chris Martin. Ilka is a writer, poet, and educator based in New York, a true New Yorker. Her work has been published in Artlist London, ArtNet, Brooklyn Rail, Marie Claire Italia, and La Stampa. Recent catalog essays include Uman, My Paintings Are My Children for Nicola Vassal Gallery, and her poetry collection, Any Island, was published in 2021. In 2010, Ilka and her husband Luigi Cazzaniga began to work with the Socino Biennale in Italy to promote cross-cultural exchange and dialogue between Italian and American artists. And the 2023 iteration featured both the work of Uman and fellow panelist Chris Martin. Chris is an American artist who lives and works between Brooklyn and upstate New York. Chris is known for his vibrant, colorful paintings, which alternate between graphic figuration and ambient painterly abstraction. Many of Martin's recent works are inspired by his observations of the pastoral landscape outside his Catskills studio. He has been the subject of numerous solo museum presentations over his more than 4-decade career, including the Corcoran Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Today's conversation is moderated by Tanya Barson, Curatorial Senior Director here at the Gallery, who prior to joining Hauser Wirth was Chief Curator at MACBA in Barcelona and Curator of International Art at the Tate. Before I hand over to Tanya, a big thank you to our colleagues Beth Stubb and Ann Sharp, who are here with us from New York, who were instrumental in bringing this incredible exhibition to fruition. On a practical note, there will be questions at the end, so please do not be shy. And to say that the private view will start immediately afterwards, so please stay and join us to enjoy these incredible works and, of course, a celebratory drink. Thank you all for being here, and I hand over to Tanya.
Thank you, Zoe. So what I wanted to do, because we don't have that much time, is to begin by asking all three of you how you came to know each other and how your different practices interrelate and how you've developed this friendship.
Should I start? Sure. Okay. So I met Chris during COVID, I believe, right?
Yes.
And we didn't realize that we lived not too far from each other in upstate New York, and began a really good friendship of sharing ideas, visiting each other's studio, and he's a really big inspiration in my life, and especially the idea that I never signed my paintings until I met him. And so, yeah, I feel like we have a very good understanding of each other's work, and I just like your wild style, which made me feel better about how I work, about, you know, my practice.
And I have a crush on you.
I met Uman as a result of a show that was around the corner from where I live, and I was very lazy and didn't want to go see this show that our friend Anatina was curating. And it was literally around the corner from where I live, and my husband said, we absolutely have to go see the show because, you know, Anatina is, you know, so cool, we must go. And when we went, it was a group show, and it was a very interesting show, but there was work that really jumped out. And it was Uman's work that was some work on paper, and I think there was one piece that was also on canvas, and we both fell in love with the work. And then my husband wanted to bring that to Italy, where we were curating a show, and so through Anatina, we met Uman, and that's how we met, and we were very sympathetic towards each other. There was an immediate connection, and her, I just watched her work get stronger and stronger. But the first viewing was an amazing experience because, in a group show, when you're looking at things, sometimes something just jumps, and that was her work. That's how we met,
Right.
like 10 years ago.
Probably.
Yeah.
And I met Uman through Instagram, actually, through Matthew Higgs. And I had seen images of your show with Matthew. And then he gave me your Instagram, and I was following these fascinating images of you in ball gowns out in the Catskill Mountains with incredible paintings everywhere around the field. And I stalked you for a little while, and then we met. I came to visit you in the mountains, and it's been a really lovely, inspiring connection for me since then.
At the same time as we were becoming interested in Uman's work, another friend or acquaintance of ours, Renee Ricard, who had an amazingly keen eye, also had seen her work, I guess through Anatina?
Through Anatina.
And fell in love with her work also. So there was a little buzz about this artist who people didn't know much about, but everybody who saw her work was very excited about it. Renee was one of your first collectors.
Right, before he died.
And I met you through the poetry world in New York
Right.
City. Yeah.
And your work has this extraordinary, I think what we're seeing today in the paintings which encircle us is a really interesting oscillation perhaps between figuration and abstraction. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what those categories mean to you, whether you're really deliberately trying to blur the boundaries between those aspects of your painting, and how you situate your how you develop your iconography.
At the beginning, I did a lot of, figurative work, portraitures, cityscapes, never landscape, because I never really had the concept that I could do landscapes until I moved upstate. And so there's no intentional reason that I moved towards abstraction. I think it was because I was living in a very secluded environment, and I had no subjects, and the subjects were the things that surrounded me, which were trees and my forest and nature, the sky and the stars, and so I feel that over time I developed my own language, which is really, I don't have any specific rules of painting. I think that I paint what I feel, I paint what I see, and I just have a gut reaction to maybe something I felt this morning, and that would go into my work, whether it's color or a dream or a shape, or so there are recurring motifs in my work, and so as a result, this has been my work.
Uman, this particular show, I know you painted in Albany.
Right.
And I know that nature is something that's a great inspiration to you, and looking at the work, you can see nature a lot, but how was the experience of painting in the Albany is, an urban environment. It's not like New York City or London, but it's an urban environment. And how did that translate to this particular body of work?
It's still, I still have the elements of landscape in my work, even though I live in an urban environment at this moment. I think I've become absorbent in my surroundings, and Albany has this intense, it's almost like living in Brooklyn, these police sirens and cars and traffic, and something I've not experienced in the past 10 years. And 10 plus years. I moved upstate in 2010. So I don't question it. It's like, let's just do what feels good. That's how I work. What feels right. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
But you know, I think that sounds maybe, it's a bit of a cliche that you, what I'm trying to say is that sounds easy, but you have developed a tremendous discipline, and that's a discipline of staying open so that you work very hard. And I've spent lots of time in your studio, and I've seen paintings that look figurative, and 2 days later they're completely changed. I've seen paintings that start out as patterns, and then suddenly I see that it's a self-portrait. So you work very, very hard. You work on a lot of paintings at the same time. So you have a very focused practice. And the gift that you bring us is that your practice is also very open. So you might start with tree branches and it looks like a landscape, but then if you see that something is looking like a woman or a camel or something, that can come in. So it's a really serious thing to be able to follow one's intuition in that way. And I think that's why these paintings are, well, it's one of the reasons they're so powerful. It's why you're so fucking great.
You and Chris are both extreme colorists. You're both people that use, powerful color in your work. And, how do you feel that color informs your practice?
I don't even know what that means. Like, inform, it's just, like I said, it's just there. It comes out, it's there, it's an instinct. I just can't explain what it means, how it informs my work. I don't even look at them as my works. Sorry, works. They're not works. They're little pieces of me. They're like my children. They're my contribution to the world, my existence. So I think that color is beautiful when you know how to use it, and when you know how to balance it, when you know how to apply it and balance it. So thank God, I feel like I have something that is there that can drive me to just feel, yeah, right? I don't know how to explain it. Sorry.
Well, these explain it more eloquently than any words possibly could.
Yeah.
It's emotional, and it's also to do with memory, perhaps?
Very emotional, and everything to do with memory. I grew up in a Somali home, and we love color, and a culture that is very vibrant. We love gold, we love reds, we love yellows, and at some point, I think I just absorbed that and have kept it with me.
Well, Tanya, we were talking yesterday about color in your work, and we saw that we were all wearing black, as the art world does. And we were also talking about how it's a part of art which resists intellectual analysis and certainly isn't to be explained. It's, I remember you telling me that you felt as a young child you just had a gift for color and for style, and you just felt you knew at a young age, what color went with another color, what form, and there's no explaining that. There's just, we can enjoy.
You're born this way, right? I mean, I think so. The idea that you know how to dress and what you like and what looks good on you and what looks good on others. I wanted to study fashion when I was younger before I discovered painting. And I always felt that I would be a good textile designer. And somehow it never came out, and I never manifested that dream. And I think that I'm doing the right thing at this moment, being a painter. Yeah.
Would you like to talk a little bit about the amazing mural that we're sitting in front of, and how you've also used that as a background to the paintings as well? So this element of superimposition and of kind of pictorial density that you have in your work. This was something obviously that you made here in London.
Right. So I wanted to come to London and have really, really something that I could do while I'm here, because when I always travel, I always try and do some art so I don't lose myself. And you know, whether I'm staying in an Airbnb, hotel, I always have some works on paper. And so this made me feel a little bit balanced. I felt like I could leave my hotel and walk to the gallery and create this work. At first, it was supposed to be really simple. And then I decided that this is going to be really intricate and interesting and also, again, emotional. I did this mural. I believe I definitely cried at one point because I was here by myself. And nobody was in the area, walking in and out. And it was very emotional. It was like, this is something I actually feel is surreal. The idea that I have people coming to look at my work and seeing the things that I see or feel, and also enjoying that. And so the mural was a gift to me and to the audience, whoever comes to see this show. Yeah.
And I think there's an intimation here of how you do incorporate other kinds of media into your work. You've talked about how painting is the center of the practice, but there are other aspects at work here. You've just talked about your love of textiles, fashion, the use of mirrors. You've worked with glass, and how do those other kind of interests in other forms of media inform the painting? How do you you don't like the word inform, do you? That's such an art historical word. How do they help you to determine other things in the painting? Do you find it useful to work in different media?
Right, I do. I think if it's a question of, I don't like going to the studio just to paint. I like to do a bunch of different things. I like to sew, I like to make sculptures, I find objects on the streets and I turn them into things, and it keeps my mind busy, and so I think painting has become really like just like second nature for me, that I need to distract myself to doing different things. And so discovering the mirrors and adding them into the work was quite special, because I've always loved mirrors incorporated into my work, but never on canvas. And so it really helps. It helps my mind to have variety of interests. You know, I do a lot of photography. People don't know that about me, because I have over 70,000 pictures in my phone, just based on all the years I've lived in upstate. I take pictures of anything that's interesting. So they all sort of inform my work, but painting is like, oh, I'm very comfortable, like second nature.
Uman, you've also been writing poetry.
Yeah, I write poetry. I'm not as good as you. Just,
Few people are.
yeah. But I also know my limitations. I think that is very important to know what you are good at and what you're not so good at. And so definitely like the idea of focusing on painting. And
It remains the center of your practice.
it remains the center.
You're also a wonderful cook. That's another one of your skills.
Art of food. Chris, do you have any other questions for Uman before we open it up?
What was I supposed to ask her?
About the painting practice of all of the work being created.
Oh, yes. Like I was just at I had the great fortune to go to the Philip Guston studio in Woodstock, and which was a wonderful experience. And what was interesting for me is that he had a painting wall and he tacked up a canvas and he painted one painting at a time. And when he painted until it was done, took that off, tacked another one up. And you and I, we work in a very different way. And so Uman's studio in Albany is a lot of square feet, but it's also all these different rooms. So going to her studio is to see, 40 or 50 canvases in different stages of development. And I don't know if it's a question, I'm just observing that you seem to work on all the paintings all the time, in a way. Is that a fair?
That's fair. I think that I'm very impatient. I don't like...
Specifically, you did these all at the same time.
Right, correct. I started these late summer and all the way to December.
I remember Nikki and I getting like these little Instagram blasts and just being dazzled. You would be showing us work in progress. And one day it would be one, and then the next day you'd have another one, and they were all looking amazing. And they were changing also.
Yeah. I think there's a sense of urgency, there's a sense of this is like something now that I need to do and accomplish. I want to do as many paintings as I can while I'm still young. And I find that the older you get, it's more physical and more restrictive. And so I don't like the word prolific, but I think that that's something that has been put onto my work. But I also feel that I just get bored easily. If I'm doing this painting, I want to start another painting because the ideas are just coming in and out. And if I could, I would do, 100 paintings at once. Just because my studio is already full. And I don't know what it is. It's maybe greed. Like just the need to do everything. But I'm also still like a child. I like everything now.
I want it all.
I want everything now. I want to do everything I can, but we're not capable of just, I don't have 10 hands. I want to just do it all. Yeah.
But I think it's part of the work that element of energy is something that's very apparent from the paintings. But you were speaking earlier about getting the canvases restretched, the kind of the physical process having an impact on it.
Right, and we discovered that over time where, I don't know where John is, but I have a really great assistant. His name is John. He's somewhere here. There he is. And I force, sometimes, I think I actually applied some of those colors with my own hand that I make my canvases are so dented and, pulled in, and that we would have to restretch them after the painting is done. And I had no idea. I think I learned that when I heard my show from Tanya at Nicola's gallery, because my paintings kept arriving wobbly and loose, and I realized, my God, I've been using a lot of pressure on them. And so they are sort of like my, putting all my energy onto it, whether it's anger or rage, tranquility. This mural is, you know, it's like from one end to the other. It was just, it's a dance, you know. It's like a trance. That's how I would feel about applying paint, and depending on how I feel that day. So.
Uman, this is your first time in London, so, and we were both saying how much we love London. So what are your impressions of this city?
I love this city. Yeah, if I could live here, I would. Yeah. I also love New York.
Me too.
Shall we open it up to the audience, and if there is anyone who would love to ask Uman a question about the work?
First of all, secondly, I'm curious with you being on the day of this beautiful painting by this mural. Was it your idea? How did it came?
I wanted to do a mural because we realized that we had to build a wall, and yes, I came up with the idea.
Yes.
From what I understood, when you moved to the Catskills, surrounded by nature, your work became more abstract. And I just wondered why does nature have that power to make your story work, your children? How is it that nature has made your children more abstract?
I could paint a tree, or I could paint a hill, or I think that the idea of going into trying to do abstract is sort of like, I want to do something that's never been done. I want to go inside, so deep inside of myself, and just do something different. And therefore, I think moving up there, I had the opportunity to experiment as much as possible, to discover this language, to discover this technique, to discover these little styles. And they're simple to the normal person, but they're not simple. They took many years to get to. And coming to upstate New York, it's very quiet and very, very serene, that I felt that I needed to go deep inside of myself and bring it out. And
You also mentioned about your use of a microscope to look at forms earlier.
I just started doing that a few years ago, just putting little samples of my pond, or just little things, you know, like to look through the microscope. And so they are things that have stuck inside of my head, and so this is my outlet. You know, like I love looking at the water, like pond water, or just the shapes. I mean, nature is so intricate, and it's
That sort of cellular life.
exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of microscopes, I think it's really interesting. First of all, I don't feel there's a real split between abstraction or figuration, because I think that all these paintings are constantly turning in and out. Something's a branch, something's a night sky, something's little bits of pond water. But I think in particular, these paintings have a scale, an inner scale, so that they're very large paintings, but there's lots of tiny little marks. I mean, it would be such a thrill to live with a painting like this. You would never get tired of it, because it has tremendous variation. It's like some amazing sort of rug where you can see lots of little stuff. And being with you, I see how you'll come back and just add a little bit of purple in one painting before moving on. So there is a micro, macro sense in these paintings. Sometimes I see like night sky, and your husband had these telescopes. You were used to seeing stars and planets. And then there's also the kind of micro, tiny mark, the mark of a finger, the mark of the oil stick is a little dot. I just love that about your work.
I think we've got another question right at the back.
Which one is your favorite?
Can you have a favorite child? Maybe it's best not to answer these questions.
You probably could. I think in this group of paintings, my favorite is probably the one that's sitting behind me, the mirror. I just love, it was magical to do it, and to such a simple language, and so it's less. It's my less complicated child.
So we have another question here.
The first one is, how has your African heritage influenced your painting? And the second one is, if you are doing lots of things at the same time, is there a point where you never finish anything? How do you feel about that?
That's like a very good question, because I think sometimes I'm not so sure when things are finished. But I have now I have a sense of when to stop, and now I actually put things away. And even if I'm not completely satisfied, I always put things away, and I revisit it months later. And yes, the African influence is there. I can't take that away from my psyche on my hand. So I think it's very prominent, but I also feel that I want to transcend that and go beyond just my heritage, or my culture. I want to make work that is, beyond.
There's a question up here.
I was wondering whether you thought about time or space or a relation between the two when painting, just because the example brought up by the panel of somebody with one painting and some time elapsing and that being their only focus, I thought it was quite interesting how you had lots of different strands, and perhaps sometimes elapsed between the start and end of the painting, but how you maybe there are smaller pieces of inner space that you're channeling into those different things you're working on in a given moment.
That is such a difficult question for me to answer. Chris, can you help me?
I didn't understand the question, but
Like, the example of somebody with one painting that they're working on at any given moment is interesting, because that's like the last 3 weeks of my life. I'm responding to the last 3 weeks of my life in this one place. Whereas having lots of different paintings that you're working on, do you ever think, is there a categorization you're making when it comes to what you're putting where, or is it more intuitive than that?
More intuitive. More intuitive, but also these are all related because they come from a period of time, like from July to December. So they all have everything that I went through this past 6 months.
And Uman has a drawing practice as well, so she makes lots of small drawings that are much more immediate and less complex, perhaps.
Right at the back there.
When I first saw your practice, immediately came to my mind the Aboriginal and Australian concept of the dream time and the dreaming, which is their belief of how the world came into creation, is that it was a kind of dream concept drawn and made
I've heard that before. Yeah. Um, um, Maybe, you know, most of the Aboriginal works are very intuitive, so there is some form of relationship there.
Also, I think that, you know, a lot of the, you know, forms, you know, like the circle and the eyes that you use, it kind of has a shamanistic power, or if you wanted to put it into more contemporary terms, a kind of psychedelic power. You know, there's something about the work that is very, you know, spiritual in, you know, a pure sense, not, you know, I don't mean that as like, you know, a corny thing. I mean, I think that if you look around, there's kind of like a shamanistic, you know, energy that you feel from this work. Or at least that was something that I immediately was attracted to in your work.
Yeah.
And I know other people have, you know,
heard
felt that
too.
also.
Yeah.
Om Shanti.
Just here.
I wonder how important is the material stuff of paint? I see joyful use of the oil bar. Do you brands that you particularly like, or colors, or how does the material of this stuff affect your work?
So lately, I've been using oil sticks from a local company in upstate called Arak Paint, and I like those colors. I also feel that it is a luxury to have material, because I still feel that if I had the smallest amount of paint, I will still be able to make these kinds of work. One of my favorite times in my life in the past, I didn't have a lot of paint, I didn't have a lot of money, and I still could create. I think that material is important, but it's not important as what you're trying to say. You know, I could use black paint and say a lot, and these colors are really good and luscious, and I like them, but I could also go with a very, very cheap, you know, children's paint, and still kind of find a way to channel that.
So painting's a necessity in that sense as well.
Yeah.
Right at the back.
Thank you. I love the one series show, and I read several of your interviews online, including a recent one with As If magazine, and that you in like 2019 also you did the mural for Transgender Day of Remembrance. And I was wondering, what I'd like to ask Maggie is whether you feel, how do you feel about the work you make now versus the work you made pre-transition? Because transition is a rarefied experience for us to go through. And I just wonder whether that's anything that you reflect on the artist that you were earlier versus the artist and the person you are today.
I don't see a difference. I think I've always been the same, and I think that people do go through different stages, and for me, I think that I've always just focused on moving forward, and not nothing has like it's a very hard question to answer. I think it's very personal too, and but I think also there is sense of joy and peace and freedom when you know who you are in this world, and you can walk around, and you become looser and maybe better.
Is painting a way of feeling at ease with yourself? Is it a form of freedom?
Yeah. Makes me feel like I have a reason to live. Yeah.
Do we have a final question? Yes, just here. Yeah?
I think Chris was talking about your studio, and I think I've had the privilege of seeing different things of your studio, and part of, I think, even other questions about time and like like surrounded by yourself, and like at in different levels. Like you're surrounded by your children, like your pieces, in different forms, so that like that time is collapsed, because like the past, the present, with the photos on your phone, and so like even being, these are from Albany, they're in London, and their, so it like yeah, like how do you feel about like kind of having that like ability to be surrounded by yourself in all the different forms at all times, and like yeah, how does that like make you feel?
It makes me feel comfortable. It makes me feel whole, you know. I think we all want to be surrounded by things that make us happy. And I have a luxury now that I can choose what I can surround myself with, and I choose to surround myself with my art and my things that make me happy and comfortable. And so my studio is like my fortress, my home. And that's why I always have all the things that make me happy. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope you join me in saying thank you to Uman and Chris and Ilka.